You suggested that Tesla buying Bitcoin was the beginnings of corporate America loading their balance sheets with Bitcoin. What do you think now that Tesla has sold?
They've still got some, but what I think is that the accounting is toxic, and FASB didn't need to address this issue before MicroStrategy, Tesla, and Square all bought Bitcoin, because there was no more than $1 million of Bitcoin in an operating company. So it was an immaterial issue. Now there are billions and billions of dollars of assets in publicly traded companies, so it's material. Lots and lots of people wrote to FASB asking them to take this up as an issue. FASB took a vote and unanimously agreed to take this up as a project, and they're working on the project right now. So we will see what they come back with. But for publicly traded companies with GAAP accounting to adopt Bitcoin in a big way, there's a couple things you need. You either need to fix the accounting so it's not prejudicial and hostile to the ownership of the asset class. And that means at least make it kind of pari passu to holding equity or something. Like if you're holding equity, you take a mark to market and you have fair value accounting. So that's one possibility. And the other possibility is people have to hold it in the form of a security. And if you hold it in security, you would probably get fair value accounting, but that means an ETF, and preferably a spot ETF. So there isn't a spot ETF right now. And even if you have a spot ETF, the rules in public companies are you can't hold more than 40% of your assets as a security before you trip the SEC 40 Act. So MicroStrategy couldn't do what we did if we were holding Bitcoin as a security. We have to hold it as a property. So I think that you'll see large-scale treasury adoption when you actually see, the accounting start to look like fair value accounting, and or you start to see a gateway like a spot ETF. And if you don't have either of those things, then you have to have the majority of your enterprise value be constituted of Bitcoin. Like with MicroStrategy, we have 129,699 Bitcoin. So our shareholders can multiply the price of Bitcoin times that. And if Bitcoin moves up $1,000, they know we added $130 million worth of value. So that's not that hard. But if you were a company and 5% of your enterprise value was Bitcoin, or 2%, or take Tesla, they would have taken a massive intangible write-down and gotten all the negative optics, but it would still be immaterial to the rest of their P&L or to the rest of their enterprise value. So it's like all the downside, not so much upside. Whereas in our case, our shareholders will look at that and they can do their own calculations. So we don't necessarily suffer from an indefinite intangible non-cash charge. So I think that you will have to see some changes before you see big corporate adoption there.
You mentioned the spot ETF. How far away are we from that becoming a reality for you? Is it really far away?
I'm optimistic.
Okay.
I'm optimistic in the next 36 months we'll see improvements in both the accounting and the spot ETF, and it might come sooner. It might come in a year.
This question came in via Twitter. My question to Saylor is, how can everyone in the world become rich off Bitcoin? There has never been a get-rich scheme the entire world is in on, and everyone makes out profitable. And how is the hedge versus inflation narrative valid when it's lost 60% of its value during these times?
Again, you got to take a 4-year or longer time horizon. Bitcoin is outperforming everything in 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 years. It's just that simple. What you want to do is get rich slowly, not get rich quick. And that means that the time-tested technique for investment is you buy high-quality, scarce, desirable property and you hold it forever. And you just got to figure out what is scarce and desirable and high quality.
I'm going to throw in a lighter-hearted question here. Has Michael ever considered becoming a professor at his alma mater, MIT, for a full semester to teach engineering or possibly a Bitcoin course? Thank you.
I did a little mini course, the Saylor series with Robert Breedlove, which was like 20 hours or 22 hours of lectures. It's been seen by 250,000 people. So if you did the calculation right? It's like if I taught 1,000 students every year for 250 years. I did another 4-hour thing with, with Lex Friedman and a 4-hour discussion in my library in my house in Miami. It's been seen by 3.9 million people. And I calculated that that's like more communication than every meeting I had in my entire life. So the short answer is, I think I'll go on the podcast circuit. I do like teaching, and I'm very open to looking at more academic things. But I think the way to do it in the 21st century is with scalable podcast mediums and streaming video, and not the 20th century way is going to a classroom with 100 students at a time. Think about 100 students at a time. Teach 2 semesters and get to 200 students a year, and teach for 40 years or 20 years and get to 4,000 students, and you get to 4,000 people on your show right in the first few minutes after you upload it, don't you?
Absolutely.
So we're all educators. We just got to educate. Look, Danielle, I don't hate on the goal people. I wish they wouldn't hate on me. It's not I don't get the idea. The point I'm trying to make is you want to give music to 1 billion people, give them free digital music. And if you want to give money to 1 billion people, give them digital money. And if you want to give education to 1 billion people, give them digital education. And I love the Steinway piano, and I love a gold watch, and I love MIT in the classroom. But you got to go forward. You can't go back if you want to make the world a better place.
All right. Well, on that point, surprise, surprise, in a turn of events, Frank Justra also sent in a question. Heard you were coming on the show. He was your opponent in the great historic debate. Do you concede, Michael, that perhaps it was a bit irresponsible to advise investors to sell everything, mortgage their homes, and put it all in Bitcoin?
No, first of all, that's a trollish comment. If anybody looks at what I've said consistently since September of 2020, what I've said is Bitcoin is scarce desirable property, and I intend to hold it forever, for the rest of my life. I'm not a speculator. And what I've also said is if you're in a collapsing currency environment, you should have negative working capital. You're better off to have debt than to have equity. And what's happened in the past 2 years is currencies have collapsed. You were better to have debt than equity. When I told people that I like mortgages, the mortgage rate was 2.7%. Mortgage rates nearly doubled, and if you had a chance to take a mortgage at 2.8% and you waited till the mortgage rates went to 5.2%, the cost of your home just went up by 80%. So paying off your home with cash is probably not a good idea when mortgage rates are cheap.